targeting individuals to be killed. I don't think that's really a role for a president to be picking targets myself, but that's it seems to me you develop a strategy at that level, and then the military forces execute a strategy.
That was the former Secretary of Defense, Donald Rumsfeld, on this program yesterday. He was reacting to the reports, and it looked like leaked reports, that the president has made the final determination in the killing of terrorists abroad, and that he alone makes the decision. And it was dubbed the kill list. And he said he didn't think that was the appropriate role for the President of the United States. You're listening to Your Healthy Radio Addiction. Joining us now, and I'm delighted he's with us, Colin Powell, former Secretary of State, of course, a lifetime of public service and military service, and his new book, it's a memoir, It Worked for Me, in Life and Leadership. Secretary Powell, it's a pleasure. How are you?
I'm very fine, Laura. Hello. How have you been?
I am doing very, very well. I saw you a couple months back, and you were, I keep saying this to whether it's you or Rumsfeld. I mean, you guys look younger, not older. I don't know how you managed to do it. The rest of us are falling apart. But
it's being out of government.
That's what he said. It's not the stress of the government. I look, Laura Bush yesterday, and I know you were at the White House. Laura Bush looks 10 years younger than she did when she was First Lady.
Yes, although, Laura, I'm in some ways working as hard as I did when I was Secretary of State, but it's a different kind of work. I travel a lot. I see a lot of invigorating audiences around the country, and I have a variety of interests that keep me fresh. And I only do what I have to do. I'm not forced to do anything. It's my choice.
Exactly, and you're enjoying your grandkids as well, which is also
absolutely for them.
Which is also fun. So you heard what Donald Rumsfeld said yesterday on my show about the announcement, it was in the New York Times, of a kill list at the White House. Do you agree with his assessment of this? Is this the proper role for the President of the United States to play?
I'm not going to offer a judgment on it because you say it was an announcement. It was a news article, and looks like a very sensitive matter. And I'm not going to suggest what the president should or should not do. He's the commander-in-chief and president of the United States, and I'm sure he is acting in a way that he feels is in the best interest of the country. And the country has been relatively safe in the last couple of years from the kinds of attacks that we are so afraid of. We've had some homegrown idiots who have tried to do things, but pretty much have been stopped. So I would not comment on what I think is a very, very sensitive issue. Frankly, I'm not even sure why anybody would have started leaking stuff like that or planting it or announcing it in any way.
Well, this is what the former CIA director, I know you know him well, Porter Goss, said about what seems to be this pattern of selective leaking of operational details, what Secretary of Defense Gates had warned about after the bin Laden killing. And Porter Goss had this to say a few days ago on the show.
These kinds of things obviously should not be discussed in public at time of war because this is a wartime activity, and I think we have been right to protect it. Washington is famous for its loose lips. This should be prosecuted.
And he went on to call for an independent counsel. Your reaction?
The last thing we need is yet another independent counsel wandering around Washington. I think that these kinds of issues and matters, and I fully agree with Porter, in my day, when I was National Security Advisor or Chairman, and as Deputy National Security Advisor, I managed and supervised for the White House the covert action programs. And you did talk about these things. And I'm not sure whether it was a leak or something that was actually put out there rather deliberately and not just a leak. Whatever it is, if I were still in government, I would arguing, as Bob Gates argued, that these are not the things we talk about. What's the reason for talking about it other than to give our enemies an opportunity to know what we're doing?
Well, that begs the question, of course. And you say we don't want another independent counsel running around Washington, but if indeed these types of operational details are being selectively leaked, perhaps, as Rumsfeld went on to say yesterday, for political reasons, whether burnishing a commander-in-chief's reputation and tough reputation for handling terrorists or not, it could put our agents in jeopardy and could put our country in jeopardy. So wouldn't it behoove us to find out who's doing this and why?
We have ways of finding it out without bringing in an independent counsel. I don't think it rises to that occasion, and I hope that the intelligence community, of which there are many, and the Director of National Intelligence and the White House and others can figure out how to stop this stuff. And maybe Don has better insight as to whether it's being done deliberately or not. I do not. I just read what's in the newspaper, have no greater insight into it, and it is not the kind of thing I would encourage or use for any purpose.
If it was being done for political purposes inside the White House,
being done for political purposes.
Well, why else would it be done? But why else would we give the name of the agent who infiltrated the Al Qaeda in Yemen, who helped us with that underwear bomber? Why would his information come out? Why would it come out that the president is using drone strikes to the extent he is? Why would it come out that the president has his kill list, if not for some type of burnishing of his record in handling terrorism? It doesn't make any sense otherwise.
His record in handling terrorism is pretty good. He got Osama bin Laden when others did not previously, and he has worked assiduously with the intelligence community and others, and I think he's built and, of course, modified some of the Bush administration policies and decisions, and the nation is still safer as a result of what President Bush did and what President Obama has continued. But you're asking me to accept the judgment or comment on a hypothetical judgment that it is all being done for political purposes, and I can't attest to that. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems that there's a pattern here, and I, with all your experience, I would imagine that these types of patterns usually end up meaning something, and fairly profound.
It could be, but I saw the same thing done in the Bush administration when the documents were suddenly declassified and selectively put out to influence a point of view within the media.
Absolutely.
It's a continuing problem that I've seen in every administration. All I know is that during my time, when it came to intelligence matters or how we go after our enemies, my military background, starting as a second lieutenant all the way up, says you don't tell the enemy anything that the enemy can use against you.
Fascinating. Colin Powell is known for his, kind of clear-eyed approach to national security matters, military matters, and when I think of how this world has changed just in my lifetime and how things have changed, I always ask myself: are we growing stronger as an influence in the world, or are we growing weaker? How would you rate us today versus 4 years ago? Are we stronger in our ability to influence world events, or are we weaker?
It's not a simple question that lends itself to a yes/no answer. I still think America is the inspiration for the rest of the world, but are we as dominant or omnipresent as we had been during the Cold War, where everybody listened to us and everybody was much, much poorer than we are? No, and I don't expect that it would be the case. We now are in a world where economic power.
Why wouldn't? I'm sorry to interrupt, but don't we want to be the dominant force in the world? I mean, aren't we still that shining city on the hill?
Mean? What does dominant force mean?
That our values.
We want to be the inspirational force. We want to be the force that everybody looks to. We want to be an inspiration of the rest of the world. The word force, I think, is troublesome. And, when you say we are the dominant force and you have other countries in the world that are rising economically, and they resent being told that we are dominant over them, I think it is a much better use of our power, which is enormous, economic power, military power, but the power of our example, to say to the rest of the world, look what we have done with our people. Look what we have done with our treasure. Look how we have created a society that is democratic, that is pluralistic. We argue with each other, but we always keep moving forward. I think that's a better source of language to use with other countries rather than saying that we are dominant and you ain't. And we used to be able to say we were dominant because it was obvious, but now you have other countries that are rising that used to be down at number 15, 16, and 17. They're now up to 2, 3, 4, and 5. But we're still number 1. And what we have to do, if we want to be seen as the great inspiration for the rest of the world, one, we have to fix our economy. We need to get the jobless rate down. It is moving too slowly in the direction of improving itself. It's a matter for the president. It's a matter for anyone who wishes to be president. And it's a matter really for the American economy to do something about, American business and industry to do something about. And part of restoring ourselves to a more influential position in the world is fixing our education system. We have really got a problem there, and that's what I spend a good part of my life on.
No, I know you do, and you've done fantastic work on everything from giving children and families greater choices in education and raising standards in schools so that children, when they graduate, understand the basics of history and understand the profound role of the United States and the rest of the world. And you've done phenomenal work over the years on that. And Joe Robert, our mutual friend, the late Joe Robert, had done such great work with the
terrific.
Children's Scholarship Fund, and that is such positive stuff. One thing.
Let me step back for a moment
Sure.
to your earlier question, and people, because I get the question all the time: where are we in the world today? Are we still that important? Are we still that influential? And hasn't our standing dropped a lot? And the answer I kind of give to it is really, if you go to any one of our embassies and consular offices tomorrow morning, you will find people standing in line. And when they get to the window, they all say the same thing: I want to go to America. We're still that place of hope and dreams and opportunity. That's why we're such a draw for immigrants around the world. Immigrants such as my parents who came here 90 years ago in the belief that they could have a better life here. I still think that is the powerful message we give, the old Statue of Liberty kind of message, that this country is different. It's unique. We argue, we shout, but that's the strength of our country. And I think we do a better job at the rest of the world when we communicate that kind of a message of, look what we have done, you can do it too. It's what President Reagan used to say to Gorbachev all the time. He wouldn't argue with him about missiles. He would say, come to California, I want to show you California. Let's go to Detroit, let me show you how an auto plant is supposed to work. It is our example that it is our greatest.
Well, it's backed up by the strongest military in the world. I mean, I don't have to tell you this, but it's an example backed up by the strongest military in the world, and as you said, backed up by a growing economy. And today we find out that we missed our 158,000 jobs target for this month, last month, May, and we grew by only 69,000 jobs. The Wall Street Journal, CNBC, calling this anemic. And I know you supported President Obama last time around. You endorsed him, which gave me such a deep pain in my heart. But right now you're kind kind of on the fence.
You seem to have survived it well.
Okay, touche. I have survived it well, but the rest of the country isn't doing so well, and that's my focus right now. So what do we do today? Like Colin Powell just grading the president. You say he's done a good job in the terror war, but what about this economy? Since that supports whether we're able to really fight our enemies and support our allies.
Well, I did endorse him in 2008, and I laid those reasons out at the time. This year, I'm doing what I did then and every election before then. I want to see the whole deck of cards out. I want to hear what everybody has to say. I'm a private citizen, not a commentator and not a handicapper, and I'm just a voter at the end of the day, and I will say what I feel when I am sure of have an understanding of everything. The 60-odd thousand job growth number is disturbing, and it shows that the recovery is not going as strongly as we would hope it would go. Partially it's a result of government action, and partially it's a result of the economy isn't growing in it. And there's just
but he's the steward of the economy. I mean, I'm just guessing. You're going to endorse him again. You're going to endorse him again.
What does the steward of the economy mean? I mean,
he's the guy who came in and said he was going to bring joblessness down. It was going to be jobs saved or created. The stimulus was going to create all these jobs. We're going to have cash for clunkers. It was going to be a big rebirth of our economy, and it wasn't going to happen overnight. No one thought that, but you have to admit that he has not cleared the bar that he set for himself, General Powell. He's not cleared that bar.
Let me tell you what has. Here's what I've seen happen. The country's financial system was on near collapse at the end of 2008.
So it's Bush's fault.
It was near collapse. I think it was as much the fault of the people in Wall Street than it was President Bush, but whoever's fault it was, and you could study that forever, it was near collapse. And you could also blame those who sort of took their eye off what the regulation should be to make sure that the system was operating in an open, honest, and transparent and responsible way. Whatever the reasons for it were, President Obama came in, building on some of the stimulus work, the TARP program that President Bush put in place before he left, And I think the financial system has been stabilized and it's functioning, even though we still see sort of unfortunate things happening as we have in recent days. So I think he did that. You may argue about the automobile industry and whether it should have been allowed to go bankrupt or not, but the fact of the matter is he took action, and his course of action did stabilize and save the automobile industry.
All right, you're going to endorse him. You're going to. I'm just guessing. You're going to endorse Barack Obama. I'm just guessing.
The reason we're going to have difficulty with this is everybody tries to put words and thoughts into my mind.
I know, but it's fun.
And everything is presented as either or, but the world isn't either or. Nor is
I know. Well, it is an election, and we love hearing your perspective on this. And I'm delighted you came on, and your book is a story of service and sacrifice, and your analysis of how we move forward is, I think people are going to pay attention to you. So I hope we hear more from you.
The point I want to make in the book is that it's for all ages. I hope teenagers read it. I hope older folks read it. My military colleagues will read it. And it's all about having confidence and optimism, and also talking to each other and being respectful to each other and trying to find ways to compromise. It's not a dirty word. It's how the country was founded. Thank you, Laura.
Hear. Great to talk to you. Colin Powell on The Laura Ingraham Show.
The Laura Ingraham Show.